No Man's Sky is a huge game with so many different features, and it gives us the freedom to play the game in a variety of different ways. It is a constantly changing game, and to top it all off, it is vastly different from what it was a few years ago, and yet some players have a large number of, shall we say, unpopular opinions on the game. Now, unpopular opinions are exactly what they say on the tin. A player has an opinion on the game that the vast majority of other players would probably disagree with. Now, I've been doing some digging in forums and comment sections and asking you guys to find some of these unpopular opinions, which I'll be going over in this video. And I'm going to bet some of these will probably shock you, and no doubt some of them will cause you to scream at your computer or whatever device you happen to be watching this video on. That especially goes to you long-term players, and I can't wait to see your comments afterwards, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get stuck in. Just a disclaimer before I start, only one of these unpopular opinions actually comes from me, and I'll let you know which one it is when I get to it, but the rest came from other players, just in case you decide to start shouting at me in the comments. And secondly, if you reach the end of this video and you have an unpopular opinion on No Man's Sky that hasn't been mentioned in this video, why don't you leave a comment below letting us all know what that is. Starting off this list, the first unpopular opinion is the game was always good, even in its initial release. Now, this is definitely an unpopular opinion because the game was absolutely slated and it tanked when it first released back in 2016. And I think a chunk of that, not all, I suppose, but a very good chunk of that may have been down to the fact that Hello Games promised a bunch of features that just were not there. I mean, some still aren't there to be honest, but overall, the general opinion from players about the game at its initial launch was bare, buggy, and severely lacking in features. Sure, the exploration side of it may have been groundbreaking for the time, especially and when you consider the size of the game, I guess, but it soon got pretty damn boring with nothing to do. Now, I myself played the initial launch version and then shortly after stopped playing before coming back to the game a couple of years later. Now, what do you guys think? Do you think version 1 of No Man's Sky was great, or do you think it was a bit of a mess, as a lot of people actually believe? The next one is expeditions are boring. Now, this is an interesting one for me because in a recent video I rated expeditions as the best update No Man's Sky has ever had. Awkward! But from what I've seen over the years is the players really like the new expeditions when they come out, as it gives us something in-depth to follow in comparison to other quests you can come across, say on space stations or the Nexus. Now, I personally really enjoy the expeditions, but my only issue with them is they are time-scaled, and outside of those times, you can't play them. Personally, I think all expeditions should be able to be started at any given time from the anomaly, but as for this unpopular opinion, I definitely agree that it's unpopular because most players actually really enjoy the expeditions and complete them. Another one that is related to expeditions is Hello Games should stop bringing out new expeditions and focus more on updates to improve the game. Now again, as I said, most No Man's Sky players actually enjoy expeditions, so this does seem unpopular in the sense, but players may enjoy brand new updates more. I don't know, who knows? But from what I've read, it actually doesn't take that long for new expeditions to be created by Hello Games, hence why they bring out so many, because they have a tried and tested method of doing exactly that. All expeditions have the same number of milestones and whatnot, so it's more just chop and change with different objectives and rewards, so it'll certainly take less time than people actually think it takes to set them up. So I'm happy with the current output of expeditions and updates as they are. Next on this list is exploration is boring. Now, I didn't come up with this one, however, perhaps controversially, I actually generally agree with it. When you've been playing for No Man's Sky for as long as I have, exploring becomes, pretty boring. Once you've landed on any single planet in the game, you've basically seen all it has to offer within 5-10 minutes of being there. The terrain will generally be the same across the entire thing, or there may be an ocean alongside the land, and we've all seen oceans many times in No Man's Sky. We already know what buildings we're going to stumble across, the plant life will be the same as the first 5 minutes you've seen it, and so on basically. There is one problem with No Man's Sky having 18 quintillion planets in them. It's almost like it is so damn huge, just for the sake of being so damn huge. No matter how many assets Hello Games have for land generation, creature generation, plant generation, and so on, they absolutely cannot make all 18 quintillion planets completely unique without being similar to others. I haven't come across a planet that I didn't at least recognize in some degree for years. And I suspect those of you watching this who have played for a long time actually probably agree with that. The next one on this list is kind of related as well, and that is the game feels lifeless. And once again, I'm kind of finding it hard to disagree with that. So does that mean that these last two so-called unpopular opinions are in fact not unpopular after all? Perhaps not. Let me know your thoughts on both of them in the comments. But addressing the lifeless issue, I can understand it because with the exception of creatures wandering around like headless chickens and a few sentinels floating around annoying the shit out of you, planets do tend to seem pretty lifeless. Take the initial release trailer for example. There were huge diplos and wave upon waves of smaller creatures that looks to actually have a purpose, and not to mention a fecking giant great big rhino looking type thing tearing through the trees and knocking them down and chasing other creatures. Basically, they're known as emergent gameplay features, where things happen around you whilst you're in the vicinity. Now, No Man's Sky is seriously lacking in emergent gameplay, and I think the only one I can think of is a pirate attack on an outpost from orbit. I think that's about it, and maybe obviously the Sentinels coming over to you. But yeah, No Man's Sky can definitely be classed as lifeless to some degree. Now, this is one of the only so-called unpopular opinion in this video that is actually mine. I think No Man's Sky is seriously lacking in depth when it comes to its existing features. I've described it in the past as being as wide as an ocean and as deep as a puddle, and I stand by that. In fact, I've probably been saying it for a number of years on my videos now. Now, don't get me wrong, Hello Games adding free updates to the game multiple times a year is amazing, and I am truly grateful for them doing exactly that. But sometimes, instead of adding new features in every update, I would prefer them to focus on making existing features bigger and better. So I'm talking about things like settlements, freighter and frigate expeditions, base building parts, enhanced oceans, wider variety of on-planet structures with more to do with them, those kind of things. I could probably actually create an entire video of how I would add depth to the game with the existing features that are already in it. So you know what, I'm going to do exactly that. Let me know in the comments below what you think you would add to existing features to give it a bit more depth. Now back to unpopular opinions raised by others, and this one is a small one and inventory management sucks. Now I'd actually argue this is kind of fairly popular opinion because I've heard a lot of people complain about it in the past, but basically this person was complaining about the lack of sorting, no setting items for sale, no autofilling, and a few other nitpicks like that. I mean, sure, the inventory management isn't perfect and it can certainly be improved, but for me at least, it's not a big deal and I just kind of get on with it. Moving on, we have multiplayer sucks. A bit generic you may think, but there's a little more detail that we can go into. This user is mentioning that there is a severe lack of good in-depth multiplayer quests, or just co-op quests in general, no PvP, more on that in a minute, and generally it is basic at best. At least so they say. Now I personally don't play much multiplayer in No Man's Sky, or a lot of other games for that matter. Like if you rewind back 15 years, multiplayer was basically all I played. So the times have changed. Now I can certainly see the argument for multiplayer lacking in No Man's Sky, but it was never designed to be an all-out multiplayer game. It was just meant to be a game with a few multiplayer aspects in it. Like there are enough multiplayer elements in the game for my liking, so like the anomaly, expeditions, being able to visit other players' bases and all that sort of stuff, but for me, I don't think it needs anything drastically changing to it. What about you guys? Would you like multiplayer enhancements in No Man's Sky, or would you rather Hello Games put their focus elsewhere? Now this one I believe is actually a truly unpopular opinion, and that is No Man's Sky needs a dedicated PvP mode. Nope, nope, and more nope. What's the point of PvP in No Man's Sky? Like if you want a PvP game when you go up against other players, go and play something like, I don't know, Halo, Destiny, Call of Duty, those kind of games. No Man's Sky was never and will never be designed to have PvP. That's not what people play it for. So I think enough said on that one. Let's move on to the next. And that next one is S-Class freighters aren't worth it. And I agree so much with this that I actually did a dedicated video on why they're not worth the effort to find. Links in the description if you want to check that out, and why they're not worth the potential hours upon hours it actually takes to get your hands on them. Like, don't get me wrong, if you come across one you like randomly, by all means take it, but doing the reload thing over and over and over and over and over again to end up with like an S-Class one after hours of doing it, what's the point? Like, why can't they just make freighters upgradable like multi-tools and starships is beyond me. Hell, even make it very difficult to do it. But right now, spending potentially hours and hours to get an S-Class one, which isn't that much better than A-Class one, is totally pointless in my eyes. This one's certainly going to get some people riled up. Ship hunting is pointless. Now, this person's reasoning was that the choice of ships in the game isn't actually that great. And now the fact you can customize them, or more accurately, build them, it's rendered ship hunting pointless. Now, I disagree with this to a degree, because for the most part, you can hunt for ships with parts you actually want to use when you're creating a new ship. So it definitely doesn't render the ship hunting pointless, unless you're not fussy on what your ship looks like. Now for me, I've dabbled with the shipbuilding thing, but I've basically used the same squid ship for years now. And I fully upgraded it, so I've got no need to go ship hunting, and if I ever did, I'd just go on Reddit and look for portal coordinates to a ship I like and save the time. But for you ship hunters out there, keep doing your thing. If you love it, you love it. It's not for everyone, and some players don't care about it, but it's certainly not pointless like this user says. Now, I hope you haven't wanted to throw whatever device you're watching this on out the window, but we've gone over all those unpopular opinions. Are you ready to let your anger out in the comments? Or maybe you actually agree with some of them that you may have been surprised about. Either way, let me know your thoughts on these so-called unpopular No Man's Sky opinions in the comments. I'd love to get your thoughts on them. And that's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video and didn't throw your laptop out the window, and I hope it gave you a different perspective on some aspects of the game that other players have. And if you're still here, it would be totally awesome if you could support my channel by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. You can now become a channel member as well, and as always, thanks for watching this video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.